webinar. We're just getting started here. I think people are still in the process of logging on, so I'll just give it a few minutes, give people time to jump in on the webinar, get logged on, and then we can get started. So as you can see, there's a chat button there. If you would like to enter your questions for me, then please feel free to do so on the chat feature. And I'm going to leave some time at the end of the webinar, and hopefully I'll be able to get to as many of your questions as possible. Although if I don't have time to get to your question, or you're a little bit shy and you don't want to leave your question in the chat on this webinar, and you'd like to just simply send me an email, then that's fine. You can see on the screen here, my email address is vlalonde@paceimmigration.com. You can send me your question through email. Even if your first language is not English and you don't feel comfortable asking your question in English, then we have, that's one of the great things about Pace Law Firm. We have people from all over the world, and we have, I think around 40 different languages spoken here at the firm. So, just go ahead and write us an email in the language in which you're the most comfortable, and we'll find somebody here at the office who's able to respond to your questions. Myself personally, I speak Mandarin, so if you want to write to me in Chinese, that's okay as well. I can communicate with you in Chinese as well. So I think people are slowly starting to trickle in. Maybe I'll get started. I'm going to talk about some more general topics here at the beginning, and then and then hopefully by the time I get into the real meat of my presentation, everybody will be online and will be able to participate. So just to start out, thanks for joining us here today. I'm glad to be able to connect through the World Wide Web through this webinar. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we can't really meet as many of you face-to-face as we would like to, but I think that this is the next best thing, and in a way it's really a great opportunity to be able to communicate with us from the comfort of your own home, wherever your home may be. Maybe it's not in Toronto, maybe it's not even in North America. I think we probably have people here from all over the world, and welcome. And we also have people from all over the world here at Pace, and we're happy to communicate with you and work with you no matter where you are. We've been having a series of webinars over the last several months on a number of different topics. Unfortunately, we can't have a webinar on every single topic in immigration or every single immigration category. We're trying to get to the big ones, but if you have questions about a program that we're not talking about, like today I'm talking about the startup visa program specifically. If you have a question about another immigration program, then feel free to just send us an email, and we can provide you with information about a number of different Canadian programs and a number of different global migration programs. I think that's one of the unique things about Pace Immigration, is that we have a really good understanding of global programs, not just the Canadian stuff. We have a U.S. lawyer, a well-known U.S. lawyer, Andy Semichuk, on staff, and we have experts from around the world who are familiar with a number of different programs, global immigration programs. So maybe you're interested in Canada right now, but once we speak to you, after talking to you and understanding your situation and your requirements, maybe we end up recommending a program in another country. But we won't know until we hear from you, so please do email us. Okay, so I'm going to get started here, talk a little bit about the program itself. Like I said, today I'm going to be talking about the Startup Visa program. The reason I want to talk about the Startup Visa program is, first of all, it's a very unique program. We get a lot of inquiries about this program, a lot of people asking about it. But at the same time, I find a lot of people have misconceptions about the program. There are a lot of misunderstandings about the goals of the program, or how you can participate in the program. And so I want to try to clear up some of those misconceptions today in today's presentation. I think that the program is maybe being marketed in some jurisdictions in a way that is not really in the line with the government's goals and the spirit of the program. So I also want to provide you today with a little bit of background about why the government created this program and what their goals are in having this startup visa program. And I think if you understand the government's goals, then you'll have a better understanding about how to go about applying for the program. Okay, so before I get into the startup visa program details, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the Canadian immigration trends, because a lot of these trends are relevant to the startup visa program. And I think it's also important to understand the direction that Canadian immigration is going in. A lot has changed in Canadian immigration over the last, I would say, 15 years. Some of the trends that we've seen is a trend towards more program choices. Okay, so like I said, I see lots of questions pouring in. That's great, but I'll probably wait until the very end of the presentation, the webinar, to get to your questions. So I'm just going to talk, give my presentation, plow through, and then I'll get to your questions at the end. But please continue to leave your questions in the chat box, and I'll get to as many as I can. If I can't get to all the questions, don't worry. I'll try to follow up by email, or you can send me an email directly and ask your questions directly, which might be better, depending on how much information you need and what specifically you're asking about. Okay, so back to the trends. One of the trends that we've seen in Canadian immigration is a trend towards more program choices. Okay, if you look 20 years ago, we maybe only had half a dozen different immigration programs. Now there are literally hundreds of Canadian immigration programs. And the main reason is that the Canadian government a number of years ago decided to allow the provinces to make selection decisions. Okay, so now each province in Canada we have 10 provinces and 3 territories, and all the provinces and territories can choose their own immigrants. Okay, and then at the end of the day, the federal government will grant permanent residence to the candidates who were chosen by those provinces. And each province has its own, Canada's a very big country. Every province has a very different economy, has different requirements. So the requirements of each province's immigration programs is very different. Okay, so that gives you a lot of choice. Every program is different, but it's also a lot more complicated for you. Okay, we can't just cram everybody into the same 3 or 4 immigration programs like we used to 15 years ago. Now we have to really look at your background, get a really clear understanding of what you're looking for, and try to find the most suitable program for you. Maybe it's the startup visa program, that's what we're talking about today. Maybe it's not, that's fine. Okay, we can talk to you and communicate and try to identify the best program. Another trend that we've seen, I'm a little bit more specialized on the Canadian business programs, and the trend that I've really noticed over the last few years is a trend away from what I would call investor programs and towards entrepreneur programs. Okay, so in Canada, we used to have a couple of programs that were really based solely on investment. So all you had to really do was plunk a bunch of money down in Canada, and the Canadian government would give you permanent residence. I mean, it's more complicated than that, but that's the long and short of the investor programs. But the government decided that those programs are not very attractive politically, and they also don't provide as much benefit to the Canadian economy, I think, as was originally hoped when they created these programs. So now the government is really focusing more on entrepreneur programs. So what do I mean by entrepreneur programs? I mean programs where the Canadian government will give you permanent residence if you agree to roll up your sleeves, come to Canada, and really get down and do business here on a day-to-day basis. So actively run your business here in Canada. So buy a business, set up a new business, but you're the one running it. You're the one hiring Canadians, stimulating the economy, creating employment here in Canada, etc. Okay, so that's the trend. Some of these entrepreneur programs do still have stated investment requirements. For example, the Ontario Nominee Entrepreneur Program requires applicants to invest at least 200,000 Canadian dollars into their business in Ontario. Okay, if you're coming to the GTA, which means the Greater Toronto Area, so near Toronto, then you would need to invest 600,000 Canadian dollars. Okay, but like I said, I wouldn't call them investor programs because there's more to it than just the investment. The investment is just one small part. You really need to come here and do business here, run your business, like I said, roll up your sleeves and really get involved in the Canadian business community. Another trend that we're seeing is towards work visas for entrepreneurs. Okay, I think this is really important and I think it's very significant. And the reason is that a lot of the permanent resident applications for Canada are slow. Okay, we think they're fast. Okay, for example, the Canadian Startup Visa Program, the application processing time, according to the government's website, is between 12 and 16 months. Okay, so for me, as an immigration practitioner, that sounds great. I think that that's really fast, which is sort of sad because it's not really fast. It's just fast compared to what we used to have in Canada. Okay, I know people that have waited 6, 7, 8, 9 years for their permanent residence to come down, even longer. Okay, so the processing times that we saw in the past for permanent residence applications were really horrific. Okay, so we've seen those processing times come down a lot. They're much faster than they used to be, but it's still going to be months or maybe years before you get your permanent residence. So between the time you apply and the time that you're permitted to come to Canada as a permanent resident, it could be months or years. Okay, like I said, months sounds pretty good to me, but we're talking about entrepreneurs here, okay? People who are making specific stated plans for doing business in Canada. Okay, you need to come up with a business plan. You need to, if you're coming up with a business plan, maybe you agree you're going to purchase a business in Canada. You need to come up with some kind of an MOU with a business owner in Canada stating that you're going to purchase their business, or you have, you sign agreements, or you negotiate with potential customers or business partners, and everything is all set. You've got your business plan, you've been approved, you submit your application, and then the clock starts to run. 12 months, 13 months, 14 months. Okay, 13, 14 months, 2 years is a very long time in the business world. Okay, if you're talking about immigration, like I said, to me it sounds fast. To entrepreneurs, people working in business, it's too long. Okay, you can't expect someone to make a business plan to come to Canada and then wait 12 months before they can do anything about it. Okay, so I mean, the ideal solution would be for the Canadian government to say, okay, we're going to focus on processing PR applications, permanent residence applications, within a few weeks. Okay, but I don't think that that's going to happen in the near future. Okay, I think we're stuck with months or years rather than weeks. So as a compromise, what the government has done is a lot of the entrepreneur programs provide a work permit for you to come to Canada and set up your business here first before you get your permanent residence, while you're waiting for your permanent residence. Okay, so that's a lot faster. Okay, so most entrepreneurs, a lot of entrepreneurs will come to Canada on a work permit first. Okay, and then processing times for work permits are much, much faster. Okay, so you come here on a work permit, you're able to set up your business, get going, and then you get your permanent residence later. Okay, it's not so much of a rush in terms of your business. Okay, another big trend that we've seen in Canada over the last few years is an emphasis on language skills. Okay, so in the past, if you couldn't really speak English or French, there were still a lot of immigration options for you. For example, the investor programs that I mentioned before. For the investor programs, you didn't need to speak English or French, and that makes sense. If you're just plopping money down in Canada, what does it matter if you can speak English or French? Now with the entrepreneur programs, you need to really come here and do business here. You need to be able to at least communicate with people in English or French. Okay, so the language requirements for most of the entrepreneur programs are not really, really high. Okay, but you need to be able to speak at least a little bit of English or French. Okay, and the last trend that we've seen over the last few years, last Canadian immigration trend that I'd like to mention, is towards a delegation of selection decisions. And this sort of gets back to my first point. The federal government said, okay, we're going to let the provinces choose immigrants. It's not, in the past, it was only the federal government choosing immigrants. the federal government or the Quebec government. Now all the provinces can choose immigrants, not just the provinces, but now the private sector can also choose immigrants. Okay, so if you can get the support from certain designated groups, okay, private industry groups, then you can get your permanent residence in Canada. And that's a good segue into the Startup Visa Program, because that's what the Startup Visa Program is all about. Okay, the Startup Visa Program is a program where you're getting the support of a designated private industry group here in Canada. And if you get that support, then the federal government will allow you to apply for permanent residence. Okay, I'm going to get into more detail as we go through, but that's really the key to the whole program, actually. Okay, so a little bit of history about the Startup Visa Program. The program was, and I'm seeing lots of questions pouring in. I think a lot of the questions are actually going to get answered as I go through my presentation. So if I don't answer your question, then I'll get to it, like I said, hopefully at the end. I've left some time at the end for your questions. But I'll go through my presentation first, because there's a good chance that your question will be answered over the course of my presentation. Okay, so the Startup Visa Program, it was launched in 2013 as a pilot project. Okay, so it was more of an experiment at the beginning. The experiment worked. They made it a permanent program in 2018, and they allocated a significant amount of money to ensure the smooth operation of the program. So the government likes this program. It's popular with both political parties. In Canada, we have two political parties, the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party, that kind of alternate in forming the government. Both parties like this program. Okay, it was created by the Conservative government, but it was made into a permanent program by the Liberal government. And you can see this is a statement from the previous immigration minister under the current Liberal government. Okay, so everybody likes this program. Okay, what are the goals of the program? Okay, so the first thing I tell applicants usually when I'm talking to them is it's not about the money. Okay, the government doesn't want your money. Okay, what are the goals of the program? This is a program that targets immigrant entrepreneurs with the skills and potential to build businesses in Canada that, first of all, are innovative. Second of all, can create jobs for Canadians. And third, can compete on a global scale. Okay, I think out of all three of those goals are important. I think the first goal is probably the most important. Okay, this is really targeting innovative businesses. Okay, so if you want to come to Canada and buy a restaurant, or you want to come to Canada and open a dry cleaning business, that's great. You can do that, okay, but it's not through the Startup Visa Program. The Startup Visa Program is for tech business, innovative business, something creative, something new that nobody's doing yet. Okay, it doesn't need to be tech, but it needs to be new and creative. Okay, so that's what this program is really targeting. So like I said, if you want to come to Canada and set up a restaurant here, you can send me an email. I'll give you some information about the owner-operator stream or the Ontario Entrepreneur Program. Okay, but the Startup Visa Program is for a different type of business. Okay, so really the key here is a single viable, innovative business idea could lead to Canadian permanent residence for the applicant and the dependent family members. Okay, so it's all about the innovative business idea. This is not an investor program. It's not about the money. It's about your idea. Okay, that's why they're allowing you to come to Canada and become a permanent resident, because they want your business idea. They want you to start your innovative business in Canada instead of in another country. In other words, Canada wants the next Uber to start in Canada. They want the next Uber to be a Canadian company, or the next Amazon, or the next Apple. Okay, they want that type of innovative business to get its start here in Canada. Okay, that's really the goal of the program. Okay, so what are the specific requirements of the program? Okay, there are 4 key requirements to the Startup Visa Program. There are the language requirements, and I'm going to get into those in a second. So I'm just listing these out right now, and then I'll break each one of these down and provide a little bit more detail on each one. But there are language requirements. There are asset requirements. You need to bring enough money to settle. You need to have a qualifying business, and I'll tell you what that means in a minute. And you also need to be supported. Your business needs to be supported by a designated organization. Okay, and this fourth point, like I said at the beginning, is really the key to the whole program. Okay, you need to get a private industry group, a designated private industry group in Canada to commit to supporting your innovative business idea. Okay, and without that support, you can't apply for the program. Okay, so again, I'm going to get into more detail in a minute, but I think it's also important to point out what is not required under this program. Okay, so there are no specific requirements for investment. Okay, this is what I said a minute ago. This is not an investor program. Okay, they don't want you for your money. Other entrepreneur programs do have a stated investment requirement. The startup visa program does not. Okay, there's no stated investment requirement. That doesn't mean you don't need to invest any money if you're going to do the startup visa program. Okay, you still have to come here and do business here. Okay, and I think it's going to be very difficult for you to come to Canada and to do business here without investing any money, without investing a cent, unless you have really good, you have a lot of backers and investors supporting you. But there's no stated government investment requirement. There's no age requirement. There's also no education requirement stated in the regulations, and there's no management experience requirement. All of those things could be helpful or could be a factor. Like I said, you need to get one of these designated organizations to agree to support you. Okay, maybe those designated organizations care about those things, okay, but there's no stated requirements in the immigration regulations on those four things. Okay, so now, like I said, there were four key requirements. I'm going to provide a little bit of detail about each one of those four requirements. The first requirement is the language requirements. You need to be able to prove that you meet the Canadian language benchmark of 5 in English or French in 4 areas: speaking, reading, listening, and writing. Okay, what is Canadian language benchmark? It's just a standard that the Canadian government uses because there's a number of different language tests that you can do. The most common test is the IELTS test, or the IELTS test, however you want to pronounce it. This test, if you're looking at the IELTS test, the Canadian language benchmark of 5 would be the equivalent to 5.0 for speaking on the IELTS general test, 4.0 for reading, 5.0 for listening, and 5.0 for writing. Okay, so I think maybe this is a good thing to do at the very beginning. If you're interested in the startup visa program, just go do the language test, see how you do. Okay, if you're not even close, then maybe try to think about another way to come to Canada, because this is a fundamental requirement. There's no way around it. Okay, or go out and start studying hard, because like I said, you can't get around this one. The other requirement that I mentioned, the second requirement, is bring enough money to settle. Okay, you can see that the requirement is not high here. It's not nothing. Okay, you need to invest. You need to have between $12,475 all the way up to around $30,000, depending on how many family members you have. Okay, so it's not an insignificant amount of money, but it's not a lot compared to most of the other business programs in Canada. Just by comparison, the old investor program, the Quebec investor program, before they shut it down, you needed to show that you had 2 million Canadian dollars in assets, and you had to prove where all that money came from, and you had to prove that it was acquired legally, and it was a big part of the application. So the requirement is a lot lower here. Okay, I'm not saying that if you have $13,000 and 10 cents that you can apply for the startup visa program, no problem, because please keep in mind, this is a business program. Okay, they want you to come here and do business here. If you only have $13,000 to your name, you qualify for the program, but you might not necessarily will be able to do business in Canada with $13,000, because I've never met anybody that was able to do business without spending a dime, especially in Canada. Okay, but they don't have a stated requirement other than this basic settlement funds requirement, because there might be circumstances in which you have backing from investors. Like I said, So maybe you have a lot of people behind you. Maybe it's even one of the designated groups in Canada that have agreed to invest in your business. So you don't need to show a lot of money, but I'm not saying that, if you're broke, you can still come to Canada under the startup visa program. You really have to look at your business plan. I mean, there's a business plan with this program that you have to submit as part of your application. If your business plan states that you're planning on investing $2 million into your Canadian business, then, and you only have $13,000 to your name, then that could be an issue. Okay, the next requirement is that you have to have a qualifying business. Okay, so you have to, like I said, the startup visa program requires this innovative business idea. Okay, the innovative business idea needs to take the form of a business. Okay, so you need to have a business. At the time that you get commitment from a designated organization, and that's the next requirement that I'm going to be talking about, the securing commitment from a designated organization. But when you get that commitment from that designated organization here in Canada, you have to show that each applicant, so each person coming in, has 10% or more of the voting rights for the shares. So they have 10% or more of the shares basically of the company. Okay, you can have up to 5 people come in together under one business under the startup visa program. Okay, so you can have, like I said, if there are other people that you're doing business with or that you would like to do business with, and you need these people in order for the business to be successful, each one of those people, those people that are required for the business to be successful, each one of those people can get their permanent residence with a single business plan or with a single business. Okay, I'm not saying that you should go out and just, call up your brother or your friend and say, hey, I have an innovative business, why don't you just jump on in and you can get your permanent residence. These need to be people that are integral to the operation of the business. Okay, they need to be people that you need to have these people here in order to get the permanent residence. Okay, the applicants in the designated organization together need to have at least 50% of the shares. Okay, so this is quite technical, but it's just stating basically that you need to be part of this business. Okay, you're not just an investor. You need to actually also be involved. You can see the next requirement: when you receive permanent residence, you need to be the one who's providing active and ongoing management of the business within Canada. Okay, an essential part of the operations of the business is in Canada, and the business is incorporated in Canada. So they want you to be part of the business as a shareholder. They want you to be part of the business in its management, and they want the business to be in Canada. Okay, those are all requirements of the program. I'm just going to have a sip of my coffee. Okay, and finally, the last requirement, last but certainly not least, is the requirement to prove that your innovative business is supported by a designated organization. Okay, I would say that this is the most important and probably the most challenging requirement of the startup visa program. Okay, so before you can apply for immigration, you have to show that you have secured the support of one of these designated groups. Okay, and if you want to see the list of designated groups, I've got a link at the bottom of my slide there. I don't know if you can click on that. I can send that to you later if you would like, and you can look at the list of all the designated organizations. Okay, so one of those specific stated organizations needs to commit to supporting your business idea. Okay, and then again, these are all groups that have been approved by the government to invest in or support innovative startups. Okay, so a lot of people contact me first. I'm the immigration lawyer. Actually, my first question for most people when they talk to me about the startup visa program is, do you have the support of a designated organization? Because if you don't have the support of a designated organization yet, then you can't submit the immigration application. Okay, you can see there the designated organization has to give you a specific document, a formal document called a letter of support, and they will also provide a parallel document to IRCC. IRCC is the name of the immigration department here in Canada. They have to provide a parallel document called a commitment certificate to the government. Okay, and you can't submit an immigration application without this formal letter of support from a designated organization included in your application. Okay, so like I said, that's the first question I usually ask people when they call me and they ask about the startup visa program. I say, do you have a letter of support? Have you secured the support of one of these designated groups? Because if you haven't, then you can't submit your immigration application. Okay, so that's what you need to do first. That's really the first step. Okay, the first step, I guess, is to come up with your innovative business idea. But the next step after you have your innovative business idea is to go out and try to get one of these designated groups to commit to supporting your business idea. Okay, who are these groups? Okay, well, they're venture capital funds, angel investors, or business incubators. Okay, those are the three categories of designated organizations that are able to issue these letters of support under the Startup Visa program. Okay, if you're getting the support letter from a venture capital fund, the VC fund needs to invest at least 200,000 Canadian dollars into your business. They have to commit to invest that amount into your business. So obviously that's a larger amount. It's not just, this is not for, maybe not suitable for just a startup. If you only have, you just came up with your idea, your business idea last week, then you probably aren't going to be communicating with VC funds. Okay, these are for business ideas that are more developed, that have, maybe already have something up and running in their home country, and they're just kind of adapting or, modifying what they do and kind of setting up operations in Canada. Okay, so VC funds are not going to be interested in working with you, generally, unless you have something that's more developed. Okay, the sort of the middle ground are the angel investor groups. The angel investors need to invest at least 75,000 Canadian dollars into your business. Okay, this is sort of for either developed or developing business ideas. Okay, and thirdly, but not less significantly, are the business incubators. Okay, I think most people, well, I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm sure that most people coming into Canada today under the Startup Visa program are working with business incubators. Okay, and they were a new addition to the program. Originally, when they first launched the Startup Visa program, it was only VC funds and angel investors. When they allowed business incubators to issue support letters, that's when the program really took off, and we started to see more and more people coming in under the Startup Visa program. Okay, and one of the reasons is that business incubators don't need to commit to investing a specified amount of dollars into your business. Okay, they just need to commit to supporting you. Okay, so most business incubators have a program whereby they support businesses. They give you probably office space. They give you access to their Wi-Fi, and probably most importantly, they help you. They make introductions for you. They give you access to their network here in Canada, and they really try to get you off the ground and get you up and running. Okay, so this is more for new and developing business ideas. Okay, so if your idea is just very kind of in the preliminary stages, you're probably going to end up working with a business incubator, maybe an angel investor, but the business incubators are really the ones that are supporting the, I guess you could say, the smaller or the newer business ideas. Okay, so this is the question. The next question that probably most of you are thinking is, well, how do I get one of these groups to commit to supporting my business idea? Where do I start? Okay, because again, you need to have this commitment before you can move on to the immigration application. So I would love to be able to help you tomorrow, but unfortunately, unless you have the commitment from one of these groups, there's nothing I can do for you. Okay, you need to be able to get these groups to commit to your business idea before you can move on to the immigration application. Okay, so how do you get these groups to support you? Okay, well, first of all, as I said, you need to have an innovative business idea. My next suggestion would be to have a business plan, okay, because if you're going to go out and communicate with these designated organizations, you call up an angel investor, you look at the list that I provided, and you call one up, and you say, I have this great idea. They're probably going to say, great, I want to see more detail. Can you provide me with your business plan? If you say that your business idea is just jotted down on a napkin, then that's probably not going to be sufficient for them to commit to your business idea. Okay, you need a formal business plan, and that's the same in a lot of them. I mean, if you're going to the bank for a loan, you need a business plan. Okay, so the next step would be to have a business plan. The next step is then to identify a suitable designated organization. There are dozens or hundreds of these organizations across the country. Okay, not all of them work with any business. Okay, so most of them work with businesses in a specified industry. For example, some incubators are more specialized in the biotech field. Some incubators work more on mobile technology. It really depends, okay? So you have to be able to figure out which designated organization is a good match for your business plan. Okay, so like I said, this could be based on industry, it could be based on the size of the business. Even within the incubators, there's a lot of variations. Some incubators are willing to take a chance on someone who just really has an idea. Some incubators are going to want to see something a little bit more developed. It really depends. A lot of incubators have, I guess you could say, prejudices or ideas about specified countries. They don't want to work with applicants from some jurisdictions, unfortunately. But so that's why I said at the very beginning, when I listed out the government's requirements, and I said the government doesn't have an age requirement, the government doesn't have an education requirement, the government doesn't have a management experience requirement. That doesn't mean that if you're 87 years old and you don't have a high school diploma, that you're necessarily going to be able to do the startup visa program, because each one of these designated organizations have their own requirements. Okay, they're their own things that they're looking for. Okay, so just because you meet the government's requirements doesn't mean you can apply for startup visa. Okay, you still need to get the commitment from one of these designated organizations, and each designated organization has its own specific requirements. Okay, how do you identify the requirements of each designated organization? Unfortunately, there's no master list that lists what each designated organization is looking for. It's going to require a lot of legwork, a lot of telephone calls, a lot of work on your part. Okay, you need to contact them, you need to reach out to them, send business plans. They get hundreds of business plans every week, maybe every month. So you're really going to have to make sure that your business plan stands out. Okay, and then you're going to have to convince them to support you. Okay, and the process could be different for everybody. Okay, maybe you need to go to the incubator and pitch your idea in person. Maybe some of you have seen this show Shark Tank. Okay, maybe you need to do a pitch in front of a group. Okay, different requirements in terms of your business plan or whatever. Okay, so you can see at the bottom of this slide, I wrote conclusion, it ain't easy. Okay, so in other words, if you want to get one of these designated organizations to support you, it's going to be very challenging. Okay, put it that way. Okay, it's not easy. It's going to take a lot of time and effort. And at the end of the day, there's still no guarantee that you can find a designated organization to support you. And I think you probably know how it works. Maybe a lot of you are business people. You know that so much of doing business in your home country is about your connections, okay, who you know. Okay, so if you're talking about doing business in Canada and you're in India or Singapore or Nigeria and you don't know anybody in Canada, then it's going to be very difficult for you to get one of these groups to support you, to be honest. Okay, so this is really the main stumbling block for the startup visa program. Okay, so the next question is, can I get help obtaining the letter of support? Okay, that's not my job. Okay, I'm the immigration practitioner. My job starts after you already have the letter of support, but a lot of people will seek out support. They'll try to find a way to pay somebody, or maybe they have a friend here in Canada who would like to help them get that letter of support. Can you get help obtaining the letter of support? Well, the answer is maybe, depending on what exactly how exactly you're getting that letter of support. Okay, and I've listed a few examples here. Okay, so a lot of people, when they see this startup visa program, their first instinct is just, okay, well, as I mentioned, if you want to get the support of a VC fund, the VC fund needs to invest $200,000 into your business idea. So a lot of people who are maybe a little bit wealthier think, that's no problem. I'll invest $500,000 into the VC fund. Okay, they're a VC fund. They're always looking for investors. I'll invest $500,000 into their fund if they agree to turn around and invest $200,000 into my business. Okay, a lot of people think, well, that's a win-win. You know, the designated organization gets an investment. I get my permanent residence. What's wrong with that? Well, the problem with that is that then your letter of support is conditional on an investment. And like I said at the very beginning, and this is the point that I've been emphasizing throughout my presentation, is this is not an investor program, okay? They don't want you because you're in making an investment. They want you for your innovative business idea, okay? So if your letter of support is contingent upon an investment, then that's not going to be acceptable. The federal government will not accept that type of arrangement, okay? Because then your letter of support has nothing to do with your innovative business idea. It has to do with an investment, and it's not an investor program, okay? So that's not going to work. Okay, a lot of people have tried, and by the way, I've seen people attempting to participate in the startup visa program through all of these methods. Okay, so these are actually out there, and so that's why I really want to emphasize this and let you know that there's a right and wrong way to get help obtaining the letter of support. Okay, another thing that I've seen people attempt to do is invest directly into a qualifying business. Okay, so like I said, a lot of these qualifying businesses, maybe they have a fantastic idea, but they don't have any money, okay? They're a bunch of young techies that have a fantastic business idea, but they're broke, okay? So you say, hey, I have the money, you guys have the idea, I'll invest in your idea, you guys include me in your business, you guys give me 10% of the shares, and then I can jump in on your business and get my permanent residence that way. Okay, that's not going to work either, okay? Because again, that creates a situation where your receipt of the letter of support is contingent upon an investment. Okay, if your only role in the business is as an investor, then that's not going to work. Okay, if let's say you've been involved in the idea from the beginning, you're one of the people that have that created this innovative business idea, and you're also the person that bankrolled the qualifying business, then that's okay. Okay, there are some people, maybe you've got the money, but you're also an integral part of the business. Okay, you're not just an investor. Okay, that's okay. But if you're investing in something in order to get your permanent residence, and that's your only function in the qualifying business, then that's not going to fly. Okay, especially if there's some kind of an arrangement where there's a buyback after you get your permanent residence or something like that, then that looks really bad. Okay, another thing that I've seen is people simply paying a designated organization for the letter of support. They say, hey, I don't have to do anything tricky. I'll just, incubators, probably a lot of them are struggling financially. So I'll just give you some money and you give me a letter of support. That's not going to work either. That's basically a bribe. Then you're bribing the designated organization in order to get your letter of support. Okay, so it's the same problem as the first two. Okay, it really has to be about your business idea. Okay, on the other hand, there are some things that maybe you could do. You could get somebody to help you with certain aspects of the process that would be acceptable. For example, if you want to get help with the business plan, a lot of people have great business ideas, but they don't know how to write a business plan. Okay, if you want to get somebody to help you write that business plan, as long as it's your idea and it's based on, your stated business and what you plan on doing, then it's okay to get somebody to help you write that plan. Okay, another thing is if you want to get somebody to help you communicate with designated organizations, identify the right groups, communicate with those groups, maybe help you negotiate with those groups. Maybe you've got a brother or sister in Canada who's able to, involved in the industry and they're able to help you out. Or there are, like I said, there are service providers who, who can provide all of these services. Then there's nothing wrong with that. Like, again, as long as it's your business idea and the letter of support is based on your business idea, it's not based on your, if you've got your brother or sister helping you communicate with designated organizations, that's fine. but they need to be talking to those designated organizations about your business idea, okay, not their business idea. Okay, so yes, you can. The answer is yes, you can get help obtaining the letter of support, but please be careful, okay? There are a lot of groups out there that are offering support. They're saying, we'll help you get the letter of support, but they're not doing it the right way, okay? It has to be more like a consultant who's just helping you, guiding you through the process, helping you maybe with your business plan, helping you ID and communicate with those designated organizations. If you're retaining somebody for that type of service, then that should be acceptable and still in the spirit of the startup visa program. Okay, the last thing I wanted to mention, and this gets back to the very beginning of my presentation. Okay, there's a work permit option for this program. It's just an option. Okay, you don't need to get a work permit. Okay, if you apply for startup visa program, once you get that letter of support, if you would like to come to Canada and start to operate your business or get involved in your business while you're waiting for your permanent residence application to be approved, you can do that. The government will give you a work permit. You can come in, get started on your business right away. You don't need to wait 12 to 16 months to get your permanent residence. And this is really important for the startup visa program, where we're dealing with innovative business ideas. Okay, maybe you have a tech, some kind of a new product or service. In the tech world, 12 to 16 months is a very long time. Okay, a lot can change in 12 to 16 months. And we've seen that with the pandemic and the lockdown. The business environment today is very different from what it was a few months ago. Nobody expected it, but like I said, a lot can change in 12 to 16 months. So if you really want to get started on your business, the startup visa program provides an option where you can come, get set up, get going on your business while you're waiting for the permanent residence. There's obviously some requirements attached to that work permit option. Okay, you need to show that your role is essential, and you need to show that there's urgent business that needs you, there's urgent business and you need to be here early. And, we're going to take your immigration history into account. If you've had previous refusals, that might affect our decision of whether to apply for a work permit for you. Again, this can be before or after the business is registered, and also before or after the PR application is filed. Okay, just getting into the process very quickly. So obviously the first stage is to get that business plan and secure cooperation of a designated organization. I can't tell you how long that's going to take. Okay, it could take a month, could take 6 months, could take longer. Okay, once you have that commitment from a designated organization, they're going to give you that, like I mentioned, the document called the letter of support. The letter of support is valid for 6 months. So you will need to submit your PR application and, if applicable, your work permit application within 6 months. Okay, and then once you've submitted your PR application, then the processing time for the PR application is 12 to 16 months, according to the government's website. That could change a little bit because of the pandemic, and the government was on lockdown mode for a number of months, so things could slow down a little bit. But I checked the government's website this morning and it's still saying 12 to 16 months processing time for startup visa program. For the work permit application, it's much faster. Okay, it's a few weeks to get your work permit application. I can't tell you exactly how many weeks because it depends on where you're submitting your application. Okay, every country is a little bit different. You'll be submitting that application in your home country. Okay, and this is a question that a lot of people maybe I haven't looked at the questions. I've been focused on my presentation. Maybe somebody has already asked this question, but what if the business fails? Okay, what if you come to Canada, you get your permanent residence, and the business doesn't work out? Okay, so actually the program provides Canadian permanent residence regardless of whether the business venture succeeds. Okay, so even if your business venture is not successful, you're still a permanent resident of Canada, basically. Okay, similar programs have been tried in other countries. Similar programs are offered in other countries around the world. Okay, most of those other countries only offer temporary residence. They don't have a PR option. Okay, IRCC understands that not every new business is successful, but of course you have to be alert to fraud. Okay, if the government is going to be alert to fraud. Okay, if the government sees from the documentation that you have no intention of carrying on the business. For example, there's some kind of a side agreement which says that after you get your PR, there's some kind of a buyback where your shares will be sold or purchased by another party, then that's going to be an issue. Okay, if it's obvious to the government that you never had any intention of carrying on business in Canada, then that's not going to be acceptable. Okay, and then just very quickly, once you're a permanent resident, I'm going over here, I'm not going to have that much time for questions, but once you're a permanent resident, you get the permanent resident card. You need to spend 2 years in any 5-year period in Canada. So again, this is not there's a lot of global programs right now, citizenship by investment programs. This is not a citizenship program. Okay, you get your permanent residence first, okay, and then after you spend 3 years in Canada, then you can get your citizenship. But what I would say is don't worry, because permanent residence in Canada is really good. It provides most of the same rights and privileges as citizens. You can see, universal health care, welfare, rights and freedoms, free education, discounted post-secondary education. Doesn't matter if you're a citizen or a permanent resident, you're entitled to all of those things. Okay, there's obviously a few differences. If you're not a citizen, you can't get a Canadian passport. You go travel, you still have to travel on your home country's passport, and you're not going to be able to vote in federal elections, etc. Okay, but most things are the same for PRs and citizens. Okay, so that's my presentation. I don't have quite as much time for questions as I was hoping. I have a tendency to ramble on, so my apologies. But like I said, if I don't get to your questions today, then you can email me. Here's my email once again, vlalonde@paceimmigration.com. I've also got our address and our phone number up there as well, if you prefer to contact us that way. Okay, so I'm going to get to some of the questions. I see a question here. Okay, so again, I see a question. Someone is in the United States and they're studying for their doctorate degree. What is their chance for this program? Okay, well, the great thing about the startup visa program is there's no management experience requirement. Okay, a lot of the other entrepreneur programs have a management experience requirement. So if you're working towards your PhD, then sure, you're eligible to apply under this program. But of course, you still need to have that innovative business idea, and you need to get a designated organization to agree to support your business idea. Okay, but if you have those two things, then you're definitely eligible. Next question, is your office in Toronto? Yes, you can see our addresses right there. Okay, so what's the prospect for a person over 50 years in this program? I've had people older than 50, I've had people older than 60 apply successfully for this program. Okay, so there's no age limit. But again, as I mentioned during my presentation, the designated organizations might have their own requirements in that regard. Okay, if you're 87 or whatever, then they might not be interested in working with you. But I think if you're over 50, then I think that's no problem. A lot of the 50-something is pretty typical for a lot of the business applicants for Canada. It's not the skilled worker program. Okay, if you're applying for skilled worker, express entry, you probably need to be in your 20s or maybe early 30s. Okay, but for these entrepreneur programs, that's no problem. I see another question. Part-time 3-year masters in India translate to in Canada. Okay, so again, that's not super relevant for this, but I will tell you that for the startup visa program, if you've got a master's degree in India, then that's great. It's not a requirement, but that's a big bonus. Okay, and if you want to know what your degree translates into in Canada, then there are specified organizations. There's a process that you can go through to get your degree, kind of certified in Canada, or they determine the equivalency of your degree in Canada. Okay, next question. Someone here said they've studied all the business incubators listed, and all of them require to join some other program, which cost around $10,000 to $20,000, and without letter of support cannot move forward. What is the difference that, okay, so that will letter of support. Okay, chosen business incubator, and I also do not need investment. Okay, so I'll just, and again, this kind of gets back to, I just kind of skimmed through the question, but I think the point is that, if you don't have that much money, you're right. A lot of the business incubators, if you participate in their program, there's going to be a fee attached with that program. Okay, so again, this is part of the program. If you're supposed to be coming here to do business. Okay, if you come to Canada to do business, there's going to be costs associated with that. Okay, it's if you don't want to spend any money doing business in Canada, then it's going to be very, very difficult. Okay, so you have a few options. Okay, obviously, if you want to work with an angel investor or a VC fund, then those groups need to invest a specific amount into your business in Canada. Okay, so if you can secure an investor, it doesn't need to be the VC fund or the angel investor that's providing you with a letter of support. It could be a third-party investor who agrees to support your business. Then that's great. I think that's another option for you. Okay, but not every business requires a lot of investment. Okay, and if you if you have the right kind of business and you have some people supporting you, and again, actually, to be honest with you, most of the incubators do have some kind of a fee, okay, but not all of them do. Some of them get a lot of support from the government. I'm aware of certain incubators actually where the fees are very, very low. Okay, so if you were working with one of those incubators because they get a lot of support from the government, then there wouldn't be a high cost associated with your participation in the incubators program. Okay, moving on to the next question. What types of business would be qualified and minimum net worth requirements? Okay, so again, this gets back, I mentioned the minimum net worth requirements. It's just all you need really to prove is enough to settle in Canada. So between 13 or 12,400 and something, and let's say 30,000 something, depending on how many people in your family. That's the minimum net worth requirement. It's not like the other business programs where they require $1 million in assets or $500,000 in assets in order to apply. This program is very low requirements in that regard. The other part of the question, this is from Anas, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, would be what types of business would be qualified. So again, it's really, really open what types of businesses would qualify, but it needs to be innovative. Okay, so as I mentioned, there were the 3 goals of the program. They want innovative businesses, they want businesses that can create jobs for Canadians, and they want businesses that can compete on a global scale. But I would say really you should probably focus on the word innovative. Okay, it needs to be something new that nobody else is doing. Okay, it can't be a restaurant, it can't be a dry cleaners. It's got to be something maybe tech related. It doesn't need to be tech related, okay, but something innovative and inventive and novel, I guess you could say. Next question, could we have a copy of this PowerPoint? Yes, you can have a copy of my PowerPoint. Just, I guess, probably send me an email. I don't know, maybe this is something that we're going to do automatically and send my PowerPoint to everybody. Probably not, but yeah, if you'd like a copy of my presentation, that's fine. We can send that to you. Can a design thinking strategist and architect qualify in startup program? Sure. I think that, again, there's no requirement for what industry you need to be working in. There's a lot of room for innovation in almost any industry, really. Okay, so if you're in the architectural field, okay, then sure, as long as you can come up with an innovative business, a proposal for a business, something that's new that nobody's doing, that's going to revolutionize the industry, then yes, Canada is more than happy to have you come in under the Startup Visa program if you can get the support from a designated organization. Can you give us an example? Well, all kinds of examples. Too many to list. But like I said, any business that you're proposing something new, a lot of the businesses that we've worked with are in tech, some kind of new technological product, an app, even some kind of new app for your phone, some kind of new online platform, some kind of new software that's helping to revolutionize a specific industry or make it more efficient. Really, really anything. Okay, I have a question here about inland application Quebec sponsor for a spousal sponsorship in Quebec time process. Maybe I'll leave that question for email. If you could send me an email, then maybe we can provide you some information about Quebec spousal sponsorship. The next question, can I incorporate a business in Canada before the startup visa application process? Yes, you can. If you want to incorporate your business in Canada first, there's no requirement in that regard. You can incorporate it first, during, or after the the process. Okay, so there's no, as long as it meets those requirements. I can go back to the slide about the qualifying business. Every applicant would need to have at least 10%. The applicants and the designated organization together need to have 50%. You need to be involved in the management of the business once you get here, etc. Okay, send a link to you. I can send a link to actually, if you just look at paceimmigration.com, that's all the information you need about the startup visa program is on our website there. You can just log on to there and get the information you need. The next question, what about individual PR visa status? Do you have to go through any agency or online by self after clearing IELTS? Okay, so again, I'm assuming you're talking about the startup visa program. Sure, if you want to apply for your permanent resident visa through the startup visa program and you already have that letter of support, then you don't need to go through any law firm. You can submit the application on your own. Okay, there's maybe, obviously you're going to spend a lot of time and effort on it, and there are some risks involved in that, but there's no requirement to go through any agency or law firm for the PR application. Okay, you can do it on your own, but obviously if you want help with that PR application, that's what I'm here for. Okay, the law firm, that's what we do. Okay, so I think I've already gone over time a little bit. I didn't have the time to get to as many questions as I was hoping, unfortunately. Okay, but I think that I got to a lot of the questions, and hopefully I covered the main topics, the main points under the startup visa program. I'm sure you still have questions. Please send me an email. I can answer your questions through email. If you'd like to look at our website, you might be able to get some information about, answer your questions by reviewing the information on our website. It's right there, paceimmigration.com. I'm going to have to wrap things up now. It was a pleasure to speak to all of you today, and I hope to hear from you in the near future. And hopefully we can all host you here at our beautiful offices in Toronto as soon as possible when things start to return to normal. So thanks again for joining us. Please continue to follow us on social media, because we're going to have more webinars on different topics coming up very soon. All right, thank you. Take care.